on thehill.com on October the 5th of 2016. It's entitled, UN Makes Power Play Against Trump. So the United Nations is against Donald Trump. The one world government is campaigning against Donald Trump. Listen to this. International governments have made a power play against Donald Trump by ratifying an international climate deal earlier than expected, effectively preventing him from canceling the deal as he has promised to do. Now, let's pause a moment. You may remember that Barack Obama went off to Paris, signed a big climate change deal without any authority. I mean, he can make a treaty, but he's got to bring it back to the Congress for approval, but he's not doing that. He just signed it like a dictator, and he's been acting like a dictator for some time. He just signed it like a dictator, and they're already getting ready to put it into fruition. Now, let me read some more of the article so you can really get the situation. The European Union's Tuesday decision to join the Paris climate deal will push the deal over the threshold for ratification. It will formally take effect in 30 days. That means Trump, should he be elected president in November, could not cancel or renegotiate the terms of the agreement. President Obama, now this is all the opinion of this writer, by the way, President Obama committed the United States to reduce its emissions by 26% to 28% by 2025 as part of the deal. The agreement is non-binding, so Trump would be free to ignore it if he wins the White House. Don't forget that phrase. In one breath, they say he can't cancel it, but yet he goes on down to say, but he would be able to ignore it. Continuing on, some say Trump's rhetoric about the deal helped speed up ratification. Most officials expected the climate deal, negotiated in December in Paris, to take effect no earlier than next year. A similar international climate accord, the Kyoto Protocol, wasn't ratified for 5 years. But the specter of a Trump presidency appears to have spurred the deal along. His threat stimulated this rapid series of ratifications. China, the United States, Europe, and many others. Robert Stevens, the director of the Harvard Project on Climate Agreements, wrote in an email. Now, it says ratifications by the United States. Hasn't been ratified by the United States. It's been signed by one man, Barack Obama. In order for it to be ratified, it has to go to the Senate, and it must get a 2/3 vote. He knows he can't get it. So you know what? He's going to do what he's been doing for a long time now. Ignore the Congress. If he could, he'd just dismiss them and rule the United States with dictatorial powers. However, he knows he can't get by with that. Nevertheless, that's what's going on right now. He's acting like this is going to become international law, but it's not going to, because the only way treaties are binding on the United States is if it's first of all negotiated by the administration and then submitted to the Senate for ratification. They can't get that ratification, so they're skipping that, conveniently skipping that to try to cram it down our throats. Let's continue on with the article. John Kokut, the Global Climate Policy Director at the Sierra Club, said foreign leaders likely moved quickly to join the deal to close off any future debate over the need for international climate action. God forbid that we would be able to debate. This is settled. You got to believe this to be politically correct. No more debate allowed, even when we're shivering in the winter time. I mean, they're telling us it's hotter than it's ever been, but it's not. The temperatures have not increased in the last 18 years. Check the facts. Furthermore, it's warmer. It was warmer 1,000 years ago than it is right now. 1,000 years ago, the Vikings sailed through the northern straits. You can't do it today. They've dug down in Greenland through 12 feet of ice and found farmland that was being farmed 1,000 years ago. So it was much warmer 1,000 years ago than it is right now. And yet this global one world government scare that they have conjured up, it's all propaganda. All propaganda. Is it a hoax? You better believe it's a hoax. Why are they doing this? Because if they can pass international law to control the carbon emissions of every person on the planet, including every person in the United States of America, they can mandate how much carbon we emit. They can mandate what kind of fuel we use, what kind of cars we drive, what kind of furnaces we have in our house, all of our human activities. And that's exactly what they want to do, because they are moving us toward a one world government. And the Bible prophesies that world government, and they're doing exactly what God says they're going to do. Anyway, all these people want to be on the right side of the issue. And I believe that Trump showed the world that it isn't a foregone conclusion, Kokut said, noting a summer study concluding that Trump would be the only head of state in the world to doubt the science behind climate change. Wow. Does that mean that we're not going to be a part of the one world government? That the United States is going to go the opposite direction? Believe me, when the Antichrist takes power, I don't want to be a part of the one world government. I want to go in the opposite direction. So I'm getting encouraged here. I think having that idea out there that the world still is debating this in some way, I think puts pressure on countries to act quickly to solidify the process and continue to move forward. Once the deal takes effect, the United States cannot back out of the plan or force changes to it for at least 4 years. Who said? If Obama can act without even running the treaty through the normal process, and everybody's going to say, oh yeah, it's law. If he can do that, his successor can certainly reverse it, and it won't take him 4 years. It may take him 4 minutes. Now, let me repeat to you. The myth that the earth is warming and that this warming is going to produce flooding of our coastlines, it's all myth. No proof. You say, how did this happen? Well, because they wanted a one world government. Therefore, they got with the International Climate Change Committee of the United Nations and said, write certain letters and promote this. And they bent the rules. I mean, there was a huge hacking of emails way back, what was it, 2009, released 3 weeks before the climate change conference in Copenhagen. And in those emails, some of the leading scientists that were working on the International Climate Change Committee wrote, we need to hide this decline. And there was even a little cartoon put out, hide the decline, hide the decline, hide the decline. And there were it was a huge scandal. They even made sure that anybody that didn't believe in the global warming myth would not be published. They would crowd them out of the major publications that do scientific reviews of these works. I mean, it was scandalous. If you want to know the truth, it's out there, but you got to look for it because they're doing everything they can to bury it, bury it, bury it. Well, anyway, continuing on, Trump has opposed the Paris deal since before the United Nations meeting on the matter in December. I mean, why does Trump have to be so practical? Why can't he just be politically correct and just go along? Why does he have to know that it was warmer 1,000 years ago than it is right now, that the Vikings were able to sail through the northern straits? They can't do it today. We're supposed to believe it's warmer now than it's ever been before. Why does he have to dig down and find out through 12 feet of ice in Greenland that they were farming that territory? 1,000 years ago, you couldn't possibly farm it today. It was warmer then than it is now, and none of the horrible catastrophic things occurred that they say will happen now if the temperature goes up 2 degrees. It's laughable, it's ridiculous, and what's really concerning to me is that people are so easily led without thinking for themselves. I mean, Al Gore says the science is settled. I heard his speech at Copenhagen. He said by 2030, the sea levels will rise 18 feet. And the man he quoted as his authority, they asked him right after Gore's speech, he laughed, he said, well, with the most extreme weather, maybe 18 inches, but more likely an inch or two. How does a politician like Al Gore, formerly ran for president, I'm just going to call it like it is. How does he get by with such blatant lies? I am just stunned. I mean, we're watching right now. 33,000 emails abolished. Took hammers and knocked Hillary Clinton's BlackBerries, destroyed them. Took bleach, a program designed to bleach hard drives, give immunity to 5 people that are the very closest aides to Hillary Clinton. Immunity. And as far as the immunity agreement, they agreed to destroy, that they could look at their laptops and then destroy them. And they're destroyed today. What kind of absolute corruption has got a hold of this country? I'm astonished. And did you see the secret meeting? Well, it was supposed to be secret, but it turned out getting exposed. Bill Clinton, the night before Comey made his announcement, he visits the Secretary General, Loretta Lynch, for half an hour. And somebody called and squealed, and the newspaper came out and took the pictures. They had told him no photographs, no recorders, nothing, but they got it. And he said, oh, we were talking about grandkids and golf. Sure you were. Sure you were. Anybody that believes that is naive indeed. Okay, I'm on a rant. I know I'm on a rant, but it's corruption, ladies and gentlemen, at the highest levels. Stay with us. Right back.
Take your understanding of the end time to a new level with our Outlines and Quizzes workbook. This workbook accompanies our Understanding the End Time 14 Lessons series. As you watch each lesson, follow along with the outlines, then take a quiz and check your answers at the end. These are all contained in one convenient workbook so you can study as well as teach prophecy wherever you go. Use it as a study guide to cement main points and scriptures that Irvin teaches in each lesson. It's also a great tool if you host an End Time Bible study. Help your group solidify what they're learning by getting a copy for each person to follow along with the video and then to take home and study on their own. Get the workbook by calling 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com and be ready to instruct many as the scripture says.
I'm going to go through the rest of this real quick, then I'm going to take your calls, but let's go through this because you got to hear it. Okay, once negotiators struck the agreement, the Republican presidential nominee ramped up his criticism. First, he said he would renegotiate the agreement to get a more favorable deal for the United States. Then he told the energy industry in a May speech that he would cancel it if he were elected. Now, international officials pushed back. In May, Patricia Espinosa, the UN's new climate chief, said it wouldn't be for Trump to change the terms of the pact. And the possibility of a Trump presidency reverberated among international climate negotiators, with Obama's international climate envoy this spring saying he had to reassure other countries the U.S. could meet its commitments under the deal despite domestic politics. Before the U.S. joined the agreement in September, Obama's top climate change advisor, Brian Deese, said the dynamics of a change in presidential administration is certainly a discussion we have. The history of these agreements is, once they're in place and once the United States has not only supported and signed the agreement, but has formally joined the agreement, that we stay in the agreement that we commit to, Deese told reporters in early September. Do you understand how twisted and corrupt this is? We've not formally adopted the agreement. You can't by United States law. Any treaty that's signed has to go to the Senate for approval by 2/3. If it doesn't get that, it's dead in the water. But they're acting like it's a done deal. You talk about sheep led to the slaughter. Well, the article finally says, we're quite confident that the United States will continue to be a part of the agreement going forward. Still, Trump could ignore the goals that Obama has set, and some conservatives expect he would do just that. Well, certainly, especially a crooked agreement like this, that's illegal. It's illegal. You're not abiding by the U.S. Constitution. You're now bypassing the Constitution. How everything's set up, you are bypassing it in the light of day. But I think the American people are too busy watching sports events and soap operas to even care anymore. Anyway, it drives me crazy. William Yeatman, a senior fellow at the Conservative Competitive Enterprise Institute, said Trump could also insist the Senate needs to ratify the deal. Imagine that. And send it to lawmakers who would likely vote it down. Environmental groups, though, predict that Trump would find there are limits to how much of the climate push he can stop. Kokut predicted world leaders would use diplomatic pressure to pressure countries that don't join the deal into taking action on climate anyway. That's the reason we need a strong president this time. We don't need to be pressured by the world to join their new world order. We need to abstain and to get out of their new world order. Stavins predicted that several environment-related measures like fuel standards for cars or regional climate efforts would remain on the books. Yes, he could slow down action on climate change, but not as dramatically as he may think he could. But Trump would have the power to shape American policy in other ways, including by nominating a 9th justice to the Supreme Court. You know, there is a vacancy right now. The High Court is likely to decide the fate of Obama's biggest climate change regulation, likely in its next term. If the court struck down the rule, the U.S. might have a hard time meeting its commitments under the Paris deal. We've made no commitments, by the way. Obama's made a commitment, but he's going to be out of office in about 3 months. If you control the presidency, then you can exert a huge amount of power, Yeatman said. You can basically not implement your commitments, and you're not going to suffer anything on the world stage.